Welcome to Andy Ari On3, presented by Wendy's, a special instant reaction edition to Ari. That was a terrible game. Unless you're a Penn State fan, let's be real here. That was a just god-awful game. We're all dumber for having seen it. Could the committee not have predicted these blowouts? Could they have just made some more interesting games?
We've had a really nice.
I'm playing devil's advocate here.
We've had a really nice 24 hours together. We're going to Ohio Stadium after we're done with this. Like, I don't want to fight with you right now.
I don't want to fight about it. It's funny because everybody's like, "Oh, see, this is why we should have stayed at 4." No, I was at the first.
That's not it.
4-team playoff game, and that was a blowout too. But
that's not it, though.
But well, it's Alabama should have been in, or Ole Miss should have been in.
That's what people are saying. But I also think, Andy, that if you like the system, then you should have been smart enough, or at least on the ball enough when listening to us, to realize that this was coming. And that's what annoys me. Like, I don't want to get here and be like, "Oh, I was right about the 4-team field. You can prefer the 12 or the 4." I just want
interesting games. All I want are interesting games.
Okay, so if you are a person who wants interesting games, then you might need to ask yourself in the mirror what format you preferred. Because I spent all year talking to you about this, and all year
would the game have not been more interesting if Alabama had been playing?
I don't know the answer to that question. Do you?
No, and I am playing devil's advocate here because there's a distinct possibility, because we saw Alabama get beat that way, that Alabama could have gone up and lost the same way. But there's also a possibility it would have been a more competitive game.
So here's the thing about the 12-team playoff that offers us some solace, okay? Indiana got to prove it on the field last night. SMU got to prove it on the field. In a world where this sport has forever been decided by people in a boardroom, the one awesome thing that the committee does in the 12-team field is allows teams who have earned it, whether you like it or not, on the field to prove whether they're worthy.
Yeah.
When we get the answer to that question, don't be upset. It is the system working. Like, that's the thing. It's like, if you thought SMU sucked and you...
Congratulations.
Yeah, like, you were right. But now SMU gets to go into the offseason without any questions of what they could have done. And all it's going to take is for Clemson to win, or for SMU to win a game like that if Kevin Jennings didn't donate 21 points to Penn State in the first half, or Indiana to make a comeback and win the game before this all changes. So there are going to be blowouts. And guess what? There could have been a blowout. Maybe it seems with hypotheticals
there could have been a blowout with any of the teams that were in the mix for that last spot.
But hypothetically, I understand if you are a person who thinks that Alabama or Ole Miss would have played better. They have better players, and I'm with you. But that is the reason why I've always wanted the 4-team field, because I knew when we got to 12, there wouldn't be 12 worthy teams, and you have to make decisions. And the thing that drives me absolutely freaking nuts is that if you are a person, listen to me, if you are a person who thinks that Alabama, Ole Miss, or South Carolina should be in, Paul Feinbaum, then what are you saying about the sport? Are you saying that SMU should not play the schedule? Are you saying that Indiana, a Big Ten team, should not play the schedule? Like, you can't just live in a world where the teams who get into the playoffs are the ones that we have a preconceived notion are good, because then you are sending a message that the games they play do not matter. You cannot say
Paul Feinbaum. What channel does Paul Feinbaum work for?
I understand. You have to, but it's not just Paul Feinbaum. It's the entire South, bro. Like, it's the entire South. And I understand, again, that people are going to root for their best interests, but there is a huge, misunderstanding here of, you cannot say all of SMU's wins and lack of losses don't matter, while also saying South Carolina's losses don't matter.
Let me ask you this, Ari.
It's nuts.
Let me ask you this. If you are a committee member, it's not supposed to affect your decision, because you're supposed to go year by year and only use the year that you're in. But if you're a committee member and you're faced with a similar decision next year, 2-loss loser of the ACC championship game, 3-loss SEC team, do you potentially tweak how you rank it?
I mean, I hope not. If they do, then they're sending a message that you want to talk about preserving the regular season. If they do that, if they would have put Alabama or Ole Miss or South Carolina in, that is a blatant disregard for the games.
It's a blatant
that we
disregard
watch.
for the ACC's regular season, and that's the part I think you're missing with the people who are complaining about this. The people who wanted to see an SEC team in there, they don't respect the ACC.
Okay.
They don't respect the ACC schedule. Yeah. They don't believe that going 11-2 in the ACC is as meaningful as going 9-3 in the SEC. Oh, it's not?
No.
So Alabama should have been in your mind.
The difference between two, I've never on the show said that going through the SEC schedule is not harder. Not one time.
Right.
I've never said that one time.
But that is the crux of this argument here.
The crux of the argument that always gets left out is that the teams in the SEC were afforded extra leeway in their record, and they still were worse than even that. If Alabama would have been 10-2, there was no discussion. And like this assumption that Alabama is a great team because they're Alabama, while we completely disregard that they went to Oklahoma and lost 24-3 as if it wasn't worse than what we just watched.
The game that got Alabama knocked out was as bad or worse than what SMU just put up.
Alabama might have played Penn State closer, but Alabama also could have gotten its doors blown off by Penn State.
Because Penn State is better than Oklahoma.
So the thing that I'm saying is I prefer the 14 field. You know that. You prefer the 12 team. But if you prefer the 12-team field, then you have to accept that this is part of it because the season has to matter. It has to. Whether you like the 4-team or the 12-team, you have to care about the regular season.
You don't have to do anything. You can want what you want. But here's the thing. I will warn everybody. All of you saying Alabama and Ole Miss should have been in. If that's true, if that's how you really feel, you want a Super League.
Yeah,
you want
play.
You want this to mirror the NFL. You want just the Big Ten and the SEC, and you want balanced schedules. And look, at this point, I don't care if that's what you want. That's what you want.
Yeah,
but just understand
you have to understand
what you want.
And that's the thing that drives me nuts. And you always get mad at me for getting nuts about it. But like, I don't even think people realize what they want. And that's what blows my mind, because like I have been screaming on this podcast, on Twitter, in columns for a freaking year about what this was going to be. And we're here today and people are like, they're upset. They're blowouts. You're upset. That's what you want. The system. You have to respect the system. If you don't respect the system, then there's
nobody's ever respected the system, Ari. So,
but this is the way. But it's like you have to reward teams who don't lose, because that's part of settling it on the field. If you want it to be settled on the field, then Alabama's season was settled on the field. SMU's season was settled. Like, what do you fucking want? I don't get it. I just do not get it.
I love when if
all you want is Alabama to get in no matter what, how's that even fun to be an Alabama fan? You don't want your games to matter? You want to go pay money to go to Bryant Denny to watch a game where the result doesn't matter?
Understand the psyche of
it's like what? It's entertainment. It's like gambling on a sport for $1. It's like, do you want to do it or not? I don't understand. I don't get it.
They would like their team to win the national title. They don't particularly care how it happens.
Entertained and nervous and excited about what goes on in their stadium.
Ari, they would like their team to win the national title. They don't care how it happens.
Just go award yourself the national championship. That's freaking stupid.
UCF did that.
Yeah, I know. And they probably still claim it too. I don't know. I just it's so stupid to me. It is so stupid.
I love when Ari gets wound up about
this because it's stupid. It's nonsense.
It doesn't matter what the system is. It doesn't matter how. It doesn't even matter what the results of the games are. Somebody's always going to complain, so you just have to.
I love complaining. I complain all the time, but I don't like nonsense. I don't like irrational thought.
Well, you're in the wrong business, buddy.
It's nonsense.
So here's the thing: there will be blowouts in any system. Any format you have will have blowouts. I sincerely hope, as we wait for this Clemson-Texas game to start, and I realize I am the one who said this is the one I see potentially being a blowout, because I think Texas, there's a very big window where Texas wins this game by a lot. But I want to see a good game. So I hope Clemson shows up. Like SMU didn't show up. Indiana didn't show up. And I don't know if that's going to affect how the committee chooses down the road. I think Brandon makes a good point in the chat. He says, don't worry, guys. We're expanding to 16 soon, and we can argue about what 8 and 4 teams are left out. It's possible.
Just so you guys know, none of the teams outside of the top 6 are good enough, whether they're in or out. There's probably what, 5 teams that can do it actually.
I love how it does not when you get up there like that. Do it again. Do it again.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So whether
now I'm clear.
Alabama might have been in and they might have had a better game, they are not good enough to win the national championship this year, which is why they're not playing.
Well, and that's it. Come sit down. Come sit down. We're on the love seat in the old courtyard by Marriott. So that's the bigger point, I think. And I very Alabama, Ole Miss, Miami, South Carolina have shown enough flaws throughout the regular season. They would not have won the national title.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
It's about finding out who should be the national champion. And we have more information about whether or not Alabama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss could win the national title than we did about SMU. Now, that might be an unfair statement in your mind because they didn't play in the big bad SEC, but SEC played their schedule better than you played yours. Yeah. It's a fact. It's not. And
then they got mollywomped by Penn State, which maybe like.
And guess what? Now you guys are all back together again.
But here's the other piece of this. Before we go too crazy about this result, remember, we think Oregon's the best team in the country so far, right?
I mean,
most people seem to agree on that
because they're the only ones that haven't been embarrassed yet.
Yeah. And Penn State gave Oregon a hell of a game.
Yeah.
In the Big Ten championship game. Is it possible that Penn State is just very good and could be destined for a deep run here? Now, I know, and I've said this too. I don't like the way the field is deliberately misseeded because I think it rewarded Penn State for losing the Big Ten championship game and punished Oregon for winning it. But Penn State will run into, like, they play Boise State next. If they beat Boise State, they will run into some big dog. Are we sure they won't beat them? Penn State could be very, very good.
Here's the other best kept secret.
Yeah.
Penn State could beat the crap out of Boise, and then Penn State could play Oregon again and get their doors blown off.
Could.
Or Penn State might play Ohio State again and blow their doors off.
Right.
Like, teams in the Final Four are probably going to be blown out too. You want to know why? Because in the Final Four, there were blowouts. You want to know why? Because it's really hard to win a national title.
In the BCS title era, there were blowouts. In 1 versus 2, there were blowouts.
What if Oregon is the only great team in the country this year?
Or what if they're not?
But here's the thing about the 12 team. I know we want good games. I want good games. But somebody prefers the full team have a clear soul day because we're playing these games and getting results, and we have fact now, right? Like, the one benefit of this to me is that we always have
nobody has to wonder.
Yeah,
nobody has to
wonder. We got it.
But
you think SU sucks? Now we know they suck.
And I'll ask this again because I hadn't thought it through that lens, but I'm glad you mentioned it that way. We don't have to wonder now. But the next time around, because these guys threw up all over themselves, is the committee going to go, well, we don't have to wonder now?
Yeah, we don't have to wonder because a new team next year will have to carry the burdens of the teams from this year. And I don't think that's right either.
Oh, it's not. But
also, too, I guess
it may be in the back of people's minds.
Create a regular, but like, that's the thing. To me, if you're on the committee, it's like, it's like Paul Feinbaum tweeted. And again, I know he's an Alabama guy. I know what network he works for. You don't have to explain.
He's actually a Tennessee grad, but I
get what I'm saying. That he said, "Bravo, committee, take a bow. We got 2 blowouts, right?"
Yeah.
It's like, so your resolution to this problem is put Alabama in no matter what. It's nuts. It's not. It's nuts. You got 10 bones.
We're just well, it's an interesting one. We were talking about this with David Ubben from The Athletic as we were watching this game. So A. Francis Cart says, thoughts: add 4 games on Thursday, Friday of conference championship week with teams not playing. Everyone has the 13th game. It's not an autobiography, just more data and support. Autobid. Yeah. Well, I like the autocorrect autobiography. But we were actually talking about this. Remember in 2020?
That's an expanded playoff, isn't it?
It is. And I also don't know that people are going to go in for one more regular season game. But remember in 2020, what the Big Ten tried to do. It didn't work out because of COVID stuff. But they were trying to set up a bunch of matchups that last week of the season because there wasn't, there was going to be a championship game, but everybody was trying to get as many games as they could. So they tried to set up some regular season matchups between teams that hadn't gotten to play each other. Like, I think that would be a lot of fun if you took one conference game off the schedule for each conference, and the last week of the season, you just
did a challenge, like a
challenge,
challenge,
and maybe you don't have your conference championship game anymore because you don't need it. I don't know if this would have to obviously replace the money lost to not doing the conference championship game, because that's the only way they would do it. But I think that would be fun, and you could almost do kind of a bracket busters kind of thing, like
or an in-season tournament like the NBA or something.
Set up some matchups that give you some more clear data as the committee goes to make its decision. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. I actually think that would be fun, and especially in situations like, Ari, how much would that have helped by giving Indiana another good Big Ten opponent? Like, which Big Ten opponent would you have matched Indiana against? Who's that?
Penn State.
Penn State. Yeah. So you would get an Indiana-Penn State game. Penn State probably wins that game, right?
I guess.
Which reinforces their case, and then you have an easier decision with Indiana.
We're also talking about the Penn State team that was up 14-0 after 2 pick sixes who went for it on 4th and 1.
I know, from the 19. Let's
so like that's the thing. It's like, oh, do I think Penn State will win? Sure, after today's information, but I don't know.
You don't know. We haven't analyzed that game very much. You haven't analyzed that game very much, but yes, you think about the Jennings incompletion on 4th and 1 when he could have just, this was their first series and they're in the red zone. He could have just gotten the first down and lived to fight another day. And then the pick six.
That game could have been really competitive.
Could have been 14-7 SMU in the first quarter. So,
and Penn State's good. I'm not trying to, but I'm saying SMU shot themselves in the foot with a machine gun today.
Yeah, I think Penn State still would have won, but that was everything that could go wrong went wrong. But yes, I actually think that would be a fun idea. I don't know if it's something they would do. And the thing is, with this format, we have this soft launch. This is what this is. This is like when a restaurant isn't officially open yet, but they are open and serving food. And basically, we know that the format changed dramatically in 2026. They want it to. If they want to change it, they can change everything. So we think we're going to go to 14. We don't know.
Yeah, or create a system where the teams that you don't think are worthy all play each other first. They weed each other out, and then the team that emerges from that.
Right.
I don't know.
There's ways to do it. There's ways to have fun with it.
Do people who watch the NCAA tournament want to eliminate the 16-1 games? That's the thing that I just don't know. It's like these are the 16-1 games.
Right. Well, the problem is they're the 6-11 games, and the 6-11 games in the NCAA tournament are more interesting, but that's also a potential football argument that you could have, where it's easier for a basketball team that has 1 or 2 good players to compete with one that has
if it's seeded properly and one plays 12 and 2 plays 11 and all that, then you have the first round games that will most assuredly be blowouts, but we also have more football, and you give the teams at the bottom of the bracket a chance to prove it on the field.
Yeah.
And maybe once every 5 years, one of these teams like SMU actually beats Georgia. And
here's the other part, Ari. I don't think it's once out of every 5 years. I think there are going to be situations where teams like that can win. Like,
I don't know, man.
Well,
unless the sport keeps flattening, but that's the other discussion too. Of like, wait a minute, has it
hasn't flattened as much as we thought?
Yeah, or is it because like I'm very curious to see what goes on, because Clemson is a quote unquote blue blood that's recruited well and all that stuff. And Ohio State, Tennessee.
Yeah, Clemson maybe doesn't recruit to the level of Texas, but the level Clemson recruits to is much closer to Texas.
And if Texas blows out Clemson, and Ohio State blows out Tennessee tonight, then what you're going to have here are all the teams that have recruited in the top 8 still kicking the crap out of everybody. So like
and look, that's fine, because the more I think about it, I go back to something you said about 5 minutes ago, and this is the part that I don't think I had thought about until you said it. And now I'm looking at this in a different way. Now we know.
That's what the purpose of this
Nobody has to or declare them.
When the Rams play the whoever in a NFC wild card game and they get their doors blown off, do people go, they didn't deserve to be in? It's like, this is an expanded playoff. There's more teams in there.
You get blowouts in the NFL playoffs too. So it's going to happen. But now we know. Now we know. And whether that is a now we know just with this season, or a now we know and that influences further selection, I don't know. But now we know. And
if it does influence further selection, Andy, the sport's broken.
The sport's been
broken. No, it's like ruined.
No, never.
We'll still watch it and we'll still talk about it, but it will just be like, at that point, there will be no point for us to go live on the playoff selection show on Tuesday. There'll be no point to
there's no point of the selection playoff show on Tuesday anyway, other than
Next year, the same situation happens, and they put Alabama in over next year's SMU.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about resume at all. Moving forward, then it just we're picking whoever we think looks the best. We can have a 10-minute discussion every Tuesday night about eye tests.
We all know what direction we're headed.
Okay,
we all know it.
Like,
so
we spend time on who did you beat, who did you lose to, what was the margin of victory, how hard was your schedule, all these metrics. If it gets to that point, then the only thing that we should talk about on a given week is who do we think would win. And isn't that the exact and that's the antithesis of what people who wanted the 12-team playoff wanted. So
I just wanted interesting games.
Okay, well,
I don't
you're going to get
care
them
how
when
you get
the
them.
good teams play the good teams. That's when you're going to get them.
And the thing is, we got 2 more games today. You and I are about to head to the Horseshoe to watch Tennessee and Ohio State. Texas is about to kick off in Austin against Clemson. I'm hopeful. Maybe I'm being Pollyanna. We'll tell Ari what that means after the show. But I'm hopeful.
I'm super excited to figure out that Clemson stinks again. Like we didn't know it already. Hey, we're on the 12th.
I am trying to speak it into a competitive game.
Like if Texas wins this game by 30, we're gonna.
I know. I'm the one who said that would happen. You're the one who picked Clemson against the spread.
No, I regret it.
I regret nothing. We'll talk to you after the Texas Clemson game.
I have a headache.